and saying, yeah, just hold it a little bit like this, and can you move a little bit to the right? And excellent. It's about allowing some of that to emerge. It's allowing it to emerge in ways that maybe surprise us, or are different than we think. A person's authentic identity has lots of layers, and in diversity work we talk about social identifiers, so it's about allowing them to find expression for their gender. And that may mean a highly stereotypical version of gender, or it may mean a very non-traditional version of gender. That can only happen when it's safe for a child to try on different aspects of who they are. It has to do with their abilities. The professor from Yale said, we have a genetic blueprint that means we're good at some things and we're not good at other things. We have a personality. And we can shape that to a degree. I mean, nurture is important, but some of that is who we are, and we come into the world that way. And so it's letting that find expression, and if it has some downsides, then figuring out what to do about that. It's about, for all children, figuring out their racial identity, their religious connections if they have them, what their culture is, their family of origin. And then they need to consolidate that with pride, not with shame. They need to feel proud of that identity. And that sometimes takes work in cultures where we make judgments and there's stereotypes. So if I am a tomboy and I'm running around doing things that are non-traditional, I need my school and my family to celebrate that, and to honor that. And if I'm going through my middle school years and trying to figure out who I am, and I'm not sure where my sexual orientation is going to land, I need to not be shamed if that falls out in a way that's different than everybody else in my family. And so kids are looking to the adults and their peers, their mirrors really, to see, okay, what's getting reflected back to me? Is this okay? If I act like this, what will happen? Who wants to be friends with me? All of that is shaping this sort of identity. And so when children move into those teenage years, it gets really hard because cognitively they're trying on different aspects of this, and they're doing it in a way that feels a little bit uncomfortable. It's like being a nerve ending all the time. And so, you're walking through the world and you're testing these things out and you're getting a lot of feedback, and that can be really hard. Your hormones are changing, and puberty really does change the brain and the body. And so it's hard to parent during this time. It's not impossible. It's just different because you're on unsteady seas. And that's when children at that age really need their parents to be steady and non-judgmental. Because it's about their processing that, and they have to do it for themselves. We can't do it for them. We can't give them a pill. We can't fast forward it. And if it goes well, they'll come out on the other side with a really clear sense of who they are. And that's vital. And I think what's hard about some of this is for children, particularly when they move into this 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, they're kind of doing it on a stage, right? That's what it feels like. It feels like they're doing that and everybody's watching. And not everybody was watching, but it feels like that. And so there's this kind of intense feeling about, if I get it right, what's going to happen? If I get it wrong, what's going to happen? And so I think we have to remember that that's what it is like for them. And our ability to stay present with them and to honor what that is like, but not to join them in it. Because what they really need are the adults in their lives to say, I'm a grown-up and I've lived through this time in my life successfully, and I really like who I am, and you're going to get to the other side of this sea, but I'm not going to act like a middle school girl with you. That's not helpful. There's enough middle school girls in all of these people's lives. I'm not going to be one. I'm going to be a mom, I'm going to be a dad, I'm going to be a good teacher, I'm going to be a great advisor, and I'm going to be a great coach, and I'm going to stand by you. So I think that sorting through this in an organic way is vital if kids are going to be able to do what we want them to do. And so remember, authenticity in this moment is about alignment. It's about moving from that place where you're performing who you are to actually being who you are. And then the emotional part of this, and this is where I just at this conference spent a lot of time, is it's probably the most important part of developing a coherent sense of authentic being, is to be able to understand and label your emotions, to identify them appropriately. And there's real nuance in this, right? It's not just sad and mad. There are just a lot of emotional vocabulary words. There are about 2,000 of them probably. And so it's not just happy, sad, mad. And it's to be able to understand and recognize them in yourself and in others, to express them appropriately, and to regulate them. And the regulation is the key. So when I was at this conference and this professor was talking about one way we regulate emotions is by reframing, I thought immediately of me in the airport, right? I was in a highly anxious, angry state, and I reframed it by thinking about all the things that were going right for me rather than all the things that were going wrong for me. I was going to get to see my brother, I got to go to Nostos, and I had my legs. Those are good things. I am lucky. I am blessed. And rather than being entitled and saying, you know, stupid United Airlines has ruined my trip, I just reframed it. And reframing is huge, right? If you can do that. Now, sometimes it's not that easy. Children need help and coaching in how to do that and how to identify. And when you get better at that, you start to realize that our emotions are temporary states. They are not permanent. And that's really important if you're going to be authentic and grounded, right? Some of these college kids are living in a perpetual state of anxiety the ones I was describing in these studies. They don't understand that anxiety should be a temporary state that you learn how to manage. It starts to define who they are. They are anxious young people rather than they experience anxiety for a period of time. Emotions can be incredibly confusing to children if they don't have a rich vocabulary and strategy. Young children and adolescents often misread emotions if they're not, trained. How many adolescents say, "Oh, that person hates me"? They actively hate me. And you think, well, and what is the evidence of that? I mean, I gave you this example once. I had to tell a young woman at my school that she was out of the dress code, and I simply said, "That is a beautiful dress, but it's not appropriate for school because you can see through it. And it's too tight and too low cut. It looks lovely on you, but you can't wear it to school." And then I came around the corner and I overheard her and a pack of her peers saying, "Dr. Scully just reamed me out. She screamed at me." Well, in her experience, my suggesting that her see-through lace number wasn't great for chapel day was a reaming out and a screaming, which I understand, but that eventually we want her to accurately read emotions and to not personalize it so deeply. But that is actually a learned skill, a learned practice skill. And I think we think just like children grow up and their legs get longer and their feet get bigger, that these emotional capacities are going to grow alongside of them. And they do, but it goes much better if we help them with that and we actually develop it. And so I think part of having an authentic sense of self is this emotional capacity. And then I've talked about an intellectual sense of self and why that is so important. So what are the things that are getting in the way for children that we could actually make a pact today that we were going to work on? Langley and the PALS Association. Well, in cultures of abundance, there's a real double-edged sword because there's so much that you can do. And my example of running through the airport and feeling like an entitled mad woman is because I've grown up with, I got to fly to Savannah. I got to go take 3 days, go to a beautiful place, be immersed in ideas, take my pad and pencil out, I have a job that allows me to do that. I have a staff that will continue running the school beautifully in my absence. I have a mother who will take care of my dog. I have all kinds of wonderful things in my life that allow me to do that. But with that culture of abundance and opportunity and privilege, it can be overwhelming. And it can lead to some entitlement and to some disconnection from really important aspects of who I am. And it takes work to stay grounded in that. There's been some really interesting research that suggests that some low-income, not all, children have a stronger sense of self than kids that grow up in very privileged environments. And I think that's telling. Obviously, if you're in extreme poverty, there are different challenges and there are threats to health and all kinds of things. But there's some really interesting work that's been done on cultures of affluence and privilege and about how hard it is to develop a coherent sense of self when you're surrounded by so much opportunity, so much pressure to try different things. So think about it. You go to sports, you do your violin, you go to karate, then you meet your tutor, then you see your life coach, then you go to Girl Scouts, then you come home and you sleep for 5 minutes and you get up and you meditate. I mean, it's just, enough. And so we have to help children navigate those waters. And we have to check as adults, because for some of our smallest young people, we are the ones who are driving those decisions. They're not, because we want to give them every opportunity. We want them to go to CTY in the summer and be a talented youth, but we also want them to go to Camp Winnipesaukee and sail the sailboats, and by the end of the day, they've spent no time riding their dirt bike around looking for slugs, because there's no time for that. So the first thing that we have to understand and make a pact that we will not co-create together, parents and school, is this notion of achievement that is very, very outcome-based and puts kids on a treadmill of perfection. We cannot do that for them. The evidence is in the kids that we're seeing in college that are so brittle, they've done that. They've been so worried about building a nonprofit and getting the right amount of extracurricular activities and nailing their test scores and getting the right GPA and taking the right amount of APs. They show up, they're tired, and they're not hungry to learn, and they're burned out, and they should be, because you should not be going at school like that. The other piece we have to think about in this sort of culture of achievement is that we have to remember that failure along the way is essential. And it's just like the worst word, right? And we hear people like me say it and we nod vigorously, but when it's time for your child to fail, it stinks, right? It just stinks. But if the long-term goal is for them to be strong and resilient, it will stink more if they call you their freshman year and say, come get me, I can't stay here. Or they call you your freshman year and say, something terrible happened to me because I had too much to drink at a party because I just didn't know what to do. You don't want that. You want them to fail now. You want them to get cut from a team. You want them to bomb the science fair. You want their science project to catch on fire. Whatever it is, you want it to happen now when the stakes are low. You don't want their first failure to be when they're 20. And the potential ramification is so much greater. And you have to talk with them about the process of learning, not the outcome. So don't be proud of their report card. Be proud of what they've learned. Be proud of something that the joy and the light in their eyes around a paper that they wrote. Don't say this is the best report card. Now we're going to get gelato or whatever it is in your house. That's what I would do. But it needs to be about not the outcome. And so, in a preschool through 8th grade school, it means that starting in 6th grade or 7th grade, when you start having night sweats and hives or whatever happens about outplacement, nope, go for a run, talk to somebody else. Outplacement is the coolest, most wonderfully scaffolded, awesome moment of opportunity for these children, and when they do it and tell you about it, they light up. I had a boy came back, I was in an admin team meeting, and Aisha came and got me, and she said, and here's one of our 8th grade graduates, and he said, I just wanted to see you. I've had a couple of good first weeks. I gave him this huge hug. He was like, Scully's hugging me. I probably shouldn't have done that, but extrovert. And he was so excited to come back. And he was the one who had this beautiful story about outplacement. And so if there's one thing I could do is like fairy Elinor, wave my wand and convince you of how great this process is so that you could enjoy it, and more importantly, manage your own thoughts and feelings about it so your children don't see it. So the culture of achievement, process, love of learning, successes, not grades, not outcomes, because the irony is if you let go of all that, all the outcomes will come to you in good terms. So the other thing is resisting the temptation to rescue your children when they hit a bump. So this is really, really hard too, right? Because the reality is that there's going to be some bumps. There's going to be maybe some dishonesty. The guy from Yale said, teenagers lie. They lie, 97% of them lie. There are 3% of the world that walks around thinking, my teenager doesn't lie, and it was great. I mean, he has the data. So there's going to be some dishonesty. There's going to be some things that don't go as planned. And what needs to happen is that the child has to figure out what to do. There's going to be a friend that acts nasty. There's going to be some exclusion. There's going to be a party to which you're not invited. All of these things are going to happen. And if you suit up with your pistol and your lasso and you head out of the corral, out to straighten it out, you can do that, but you are disabling your child when you do that. And there is really good evidence now that some of why these kids are so brittle when they arrive at a university is because they've been overprotected, and this is a new word, over-trophied. Everybody gets a trophy or a ribbon or a award. So the threat to authenticity is, my parents don't believe I can sort this out for myself, so they're going to go do it for me. I remember a girl said to me when I was in a high school level, my mom has hired a really expensive outside college counselor to help me get into college because apparently if she doesn't, I won't get in. I said, that's not the case. And she said, well, why else would she go spend $4,000 on some person who's going to help me write my essays and tell me what I should put in my essays? I guess she thinks that if she doesn't do that, I don't have a shot. That's powerful. That's really, really powerful. So when we go in rescue mode, we're telling them we don't believe you can do it. And that's the damage, right? Aside from the fact that you might get crossways with the school and the administration and all of your friends, it's that your child is being told that you don't believe they can solve a problem for themselves. So you really need to allow that. Now, of course, there are going to be times when you can't do that. Things are going to happen where a grown-up has to intercede. But there's a lot that they can navigate for themselves. The other piece is that you can partner with us to really spend some time helping children access their emotional lives. And this conference was all about that. And pillar 2 of our strategic plan is about making more formal our social and emotional program. And I'm more persuaded than ever that children need our help with this, explicitly in school and at home. And it's about identifying and giving voice to those feelings and figuring out what to do about them. And that is vital. They need us to help them do that, and schools are places where they can do it. One of the things that technology has made so much more complicated is that they're having a lot more interactions that do not have tone of voice and context clues and things like that. So the emotions are getting triggered, and all of that is being performed publicly. So all of these things about relationships and dynamics have a voice. So when they leave school, when I left school, I kind of exhaled, right? I got on the bus, I got off the bus, I'd wander around, get to my house, I'd have some cereal, a bowl of Captain Crunch, and then I'd think about my homework. I didn't have a phone that was buzzing in my pocket reminding me of every single social dynamic that was playing out in the hallways of my school was then coming into my home, and if I took my phone into my bedroom, it was happening in my bedroom, and then I would wake up at 6 o'clock and there it was again. That's really different. And so setting boundaries around that and helping kids have an emotional vocabulary around that is really important, because they don't have, when I left school, I didn't have all of that bombarding me all the time. So we need to help them develop this emotional vocabulary, honor their feelings, and then figure out strategies for dealing with those feelings. When you're hurt, when you're sad, when you're embarrassed, all of that. So I think there are 5 competencies. Self-esteem, that is your job more than anyone else's. Parents are the primary source of a child's self-esteem. It is this idea that you are loved unconditionally. Doesn't mean that your actions and behaviors don't bring sanction and censure sometimes, but it is that you are lovable as you are. As you are. Not if you were the lacrosse goalie, not if you get into National Cathedral School, not if you score well on your ERBs. It is as you are, warts and all. Extroverted, introverted, clam open, clam closed, you're good. I love you. Now we can work on how you move through the world and what you're obligated to do. But I love you as you are, and I see you as you are. I'm not trying to make you into someone you're not. It is also about self-efficacy of agency. What can I help you with? What can I scaffold? And then when am I going to step back and let you sort out that you and your best friend have just had a big fight? I can coach you, I can talk to you, I can empathize, but I'm not going to run this for you. I'm not going to orchestrate a new play date that puts you in a new group of friendships. I'm not going to trash the kid that's hurt you. I'm gonna stay present with you and help you figure it out. And I'm gonna ask you questions rather than tell you things. And I'm gonna tell you I believe you can do it. And then I have faith. And then if this is a really crappy time, it will pass. That emotional states are not permanent. They come in for a while, they reside within us, and then they leave. And you can handle it. I'm going to help you with your moral sense of self. I'm going to help you know right from wrong. I'm going to tell you what our family values are, and I'm going to help you develop the motivation to live by them. And if you mess up, I'm going to forgive you, but I'm going to tell you why you shouldn't have done that. And I'm going to help you with relationship skills. And I'm going to help you be resilient. And that means tolerating uncertainty, tolerating frustration, tolerating stress, experiencing adversity and recovering, and I'm going to help you regulate your internal state. So, the partnership we have is we do this work at school, in our curriculum, in the hallways, and we partner with you to think about building these skills in our children. We help them develop this emotional capacity and vocabulary. We help them understand who they are as they are. We help them practice and exercise their signature strengths and work on the things that they're not good at. We're there for them when they make mistakes and they fall and they transgress. We forgive them. And we do all of this because we know that if we do that and focus on the journey and the small steps, the outcome will take care of itself.